Dana White's story begins long before the morning of September 10th, when rumors of him being rushed to the ICU spread panic across the fight world. To understand the weight of that moment, you have to follow his life in detail, tracing every step that brought him from a chaotic childhood to the pinnacle of global sports, and ultimately to the health struggles that cast doubt on his own invincibility. He was born in Manchester, Connecticut on July 28, 1969. His father was absent for most of his life, leaving Dana and his sister to be raised by their mother. His childhood was unstable, defined by constant moving, fractured relationships, and an underlying sense that control was always slipping through his fingers. He often described those early years as chaotic. School was never his strong point. He wasn't drawn to academics, but he found something else that gave him focus: fighting. From a young age, Dana had a defiant streak. He gravitated towards sports, particularly boxing, not just because he enjoyed it, but because it gave him something he craved: power. He hated the idea of being powerless. He hated being told what he could or couldn't do. That resistance to authority carried him into fights in gyms, in backyards, and on the streets. For Dana, fighting wasn't a pastime, it was survival, a way to carve out control in a world that constantly threatened to strip it from him. His defiance carried into adulthood. He briefly tried college but dropped out, uninterested in pursuing a path that others had laid out for him. Instead, he began pursuing boxing seriously, not as a competitor, but as a trainer. In Boston, he worked as an instructor, running cardio classes and teaching clients how to box. The money was small and the lifestyle wasn't glamorous, but Dana was ambitious. He believed he could turn fighting into more than just a paycheck. That ambition nearly cost him his life. While in Boston, he was approached by associates of notorious crime boss Whitey Bulger. They demanded money. Dana didn't have it. The threats escalated quickly. He was told if he didn't pay, he'd suffer the consequences. Faced with a choice between violence and survival, Dana packed a bag and fled to Las Vegas. It was a desperate move, but it became the turning point of his life. In Las Vegas, he started over. He taught fitness classes, ran boxing workouts, and did whatever he could to scrape by. Vegas was a city where fighters came and went, and in that chaos, Dana found opportunity. He transitioned from trainer to manager, eventually working with fighters like Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. At the time, the UFC was a failing organization. Politicians had branded it human cockfighting. TV networks refused to air it, and sponsors wouldn't touch it. The company was hemorrhaging money and seemed destined to collapse. Where others saw a dead end, Dana saw possibility. He envisioned a future where mixed martial arts could be a legitimate mainstream sport. But vision alone wasn't enough. He needed resources, and he found them in his childhood friend Lorenzo Fertitta, a wealthy casino executive with deep connections in Nevada. Along with his brother Frank, the Fertittas agreed to buy the UFC for $2 million in 2001. Dana White was installed as president, a role that would define his life. The early years were grueling. The UFC was losing millions, and critics believed it was a failed experiment. Dana fought for every inch of progress, pitching to sponsors, pleading with networks, and personally battling anyone who stood in his way. He became known for his fiery temper, his profanity-laced tirades, and his refusal to accept no for an answer. Slowly, he built a foundation, but the real breakthrough came in 2005 with the launch of The Ultimate Fighter. The reality show introduced MMA to mainstream audiences, showing not just the fights, but the personalities of the fighters. Dana's no-nonsense attitude made him a star in his own right. Fans tuned in as much for his confrontations as they did for the fights. From there, the UFC exploded. Pay-per-view sales soared. Fighters became household names. Events began filling arenas across the world. Dana White wasn't just running a promotion. He was running a cultural phenomenon. By the mid-2000s, the UFC had transformed into one of the fastest-growing sports organizations in the world, and Dana was at the center of it all, but the pace was brutal. Dana was always on the move, traveling constantly, running press conferences, negotiating deals, and inserting himself into almost every storyline. He wasn't the kind of executive who stayed in the background. He wanted to be on the front lines, taking shots from journalists, addressing fighter complaints, and being the face of every major announcement. His personality became part of the brand. He thrived on chaos and conflict, but the toll on his health was mounting. In 2012, Dana revealed he had Meniere's disease, a rare disorder of the inner ear that caused severe vertigo, dizziness, and nausea. He admitted the condition made him feel powerless, a word he despised. For a man who built his identity on control, it was devastating. He sought treatment, including experimental stem cell therapies abroad, and claimed some success. But his appearance often betrayed him. His fluctuating weight, flushed face, and visible fatigue became subjects of speculation. Rumors swirled that he also struggled with high blood pressure, migraines, and other health complications. He brushed off the talk, insisting he was healthier than ever, but every public appearance fueled questions. Despite this, Dana doubled down on discipline. He emphasized his strict fitness routine, boasting about morning workouts that rivaled professional fighters. He treated mornings as sacred, using them to prove to himself and the world that he was still in control, still strong, still capable of outworking anyone. His fitness became a shield, both against aging and against the image of fragility that critics tried to project onto him. But on September 10th, that shield cracked. The morning began like countless others, with Dana committed to his workout routine. At some point, however, something went wrong. Reports emerged online, first in fragments. One claim said he collapsed during training. Another suggested a sudden medical emergency unrelated to exercise. The exact details were unclear, but the rumor spread quickly. Dana White had been rushed to the ICU. The reaction was immediate. Online forums filled with speculation. Fans debated whether it was exhaustion, a heart-related issue, or something connected to his Meniere's disease. Twitter and fan pages exploded with theories, dissecting his recent public appearances for signs of decline. By late morning, the rumor had consumed the fight world. What made the situation more unsettling was the silence from official sources. The UFC, normally quick to issue statements or spin controversy, said nothing. No confirmation, no denial, no reassurances. That silence magnified the fear. Fighters began posting cryptic messages, well wishes without names, prayers without details. Fans interpreted them as proof that the rumor was real. Journalists scrambled to verify the story, but were met with unusual resistance. Insiders who normally leaked stories were suddenly silent. The lack of information split the fight community. Some demanded answers, arguing that Dana White's health was too important to be kept private. The president of the UFC wasn't just another executive. He was the face of the sport. Others argued that he deserved privacy, especially if his condition was serious. The tension between these two views only added to the frenzy. Behind the scenes, fighters and managers grew anxious. Dana wasn't just the president, he was the gatekeeper to careers, paychecks, and opportunities. His absence, even if temporary, left many wondering if events would be delayed, if contracts would be affected, or if the UFC itself could run the same without him. Gyms across the country echoed with the same question. What happens if Dana White can't continue? For more than 20 years, Dana White was not just an executive, but the embodiment of the UFC. Every major fight, every milestone, every deal bore his fingerprints. He thrived on the role, making himself indispensable. But on September 10th, that very indispensability became the source of the fight world's fear. The empire seemed fragile without him. The truth of what happened that morning remains clouded by rumor and silence. But one reality has become clear. The illusion of Dana White's invincibility has been shattered. For years, he stood as a figure who could outwork, outfight, and outlast anyone. But the morning of September 10th revealed the one opponent he could never truly beat: his own body. The UFC may continue with or without him, but the world now knows that even the man who built the empire is not untouchable. For the first time, fans, fighters, and insiders alike are left to wonder not just about Dana White's recovery, but about the future of the sport he built.